Good evening and welcome into Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I am Wags alongside Joe Hamilton and Scott Tobin here to bring you all the day in sports action. And it's been a heck of a weekend. And I'll be perfectly honest, guys. I know we've got the Cardinals here in St. Louis. I know the Blues are playing. I know a lot of stuff's going on. But I have been absolutely hooked on this women's volleyball championship going on in Omaha, Nebraska. I've been watching a lot of volleyball this weekend. I know that's not your guys' cup of tea, but what have you guys been doing this weekend? And what are you watching tonight that makes you go, yes, I am so glad sports is back?
I've watched a lot of baseball this weekend. I like the way the Cardinals offense is starting to look. You know, we talked about the Cardinals needing to find an outfield. And I think they filled two of those three spots, boys. You know, we all knew Dylan Carlson was going to take one of them. I think Justin Williams might be proving that he deserves to be the right fielder on this team, or either the right fielder or the left fielder moving forward, depending on how the Bader O'Neill thing plays out. But I think we might have two of our outfield spots filled. What do you guys think?
I think you're right. And by the way, I've been watching a lot of baseball this weekend. Went bowling a couple times this weekend, trying to get my game up, but also been watching baseball, watching hockey. Was a little disappointed in the Blues after Saturday night. I mean, I feel like that's a game they had to win, but we'll get to that.
We may not. I don't know if I really want to talk too much about the St. Louis Blues right now because they are basically backing themselves ass into the playoffs. Potentially, we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit of NHL a little bit later as the playoff races are heating up. The NBA playoff races are also heating up. We will touch on the volleyball championships as well as some stuff going down in the NFL. We had a big retirement announcement today as well. And one of our local guys is in trouble with the law again. But that'll all be a little bit later on the show. We have to start with baseball, though. It is in full swing, no pun intended. We've griped about the Cardinals all season. I know it's only 2 weeks in. But tonight in Washington, they are looking a lot better. If you haven't gone to our Facebook page, too, make sure you go there. Let us know who your Mount Rushmore of Cardinals players are as well. We've been getting a lot of great responses to that one. Like to hear all of yours, so make sure you go to the Facebook page and check that out as well. But let's go ahead and dive into this Cardinal game real quick. It's a 12-5 Cardinal lead here in the bottom of the eighth. 2 outs in the bottom of the eighth. Lots of home runs for the Cardinals tonight. Paul DeYoung has 2 home runs, including a grand slam. Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman have also hit home runs, as well as Justin Williams, the guy you alluded to earlier, Scott. And yeah, we went into this season having a lot of question marks about this outfield. And even at the beginning of the season, when these guys weren't hitting right away, we started going, man, what are we going to do? But the last couple games especially, Justin Williams has looked like he has belonged. And it's more so because he's gotten a shot. You know, last year he did not get any sort of shot at all. And you had Lane Thomas coming up. You had Carlson and O'Neill and Bader and Dexter Fowler, all these guys, and yet Justin Williams didn't get a shot to play. Well, now he comes up, struggles off the bat, but really the last couple of games, he has looked very, very good. He's now hitting .231 on the year, and this is from a guy who started off hitting somewhere in the low 100s. Scott, you mentioned that we've got 2 guys now that are probably locked into this position, but what really have you seen in Justin Williams that makes you confident that he is a guy going forward that can hold down that spot?
Well, one thing that impresses me is what you talked about. You know, he started 1 for 17, really struggled with striking out a ton, and he's made adjustments. That's the biggest thing. I've seen him play good outfield in left and right, and then the guy just hits the ball hard. He's got great. The ball. You can really tell that he hits the ball hard. They talk about exit velo, but you can just see it. And if anybody missed it today, go back and watch the highlights of the home run he hit tonight. I mean, it was a line drive to center field that came off his bat at 109 miles an hour. But the guy hits the ball hard, and he drives the ball, and he drives the ball in the opposite field. He might be that left-handed bat in the outfield that we've been looking for.
With Justin Williams, you talk about the exit velo. The guy's slamming baseballs. Haven't really fell in for him. When he first came up, though, Wags, I didn't know how ready he was for the major leagues because he was coming up basically swinging at everything. And most of the time that's because, guys want to make a name for themselves. But, I wanted to see what kind of at-bats he could have as things drawn on here. And I'll tell you what, the Cardinals as a team tonight have really taken a lot of close pitches. So I'm happy about that, and it's really paid dividends.
And that's the thing that I've noticed with Williams as well. I mean, he has a walk tonight, and that's a big, big thing because if you've got a guy that's seeing the ball well, it's not the pitches that he's hitting. It's the ones that he's laying off, the ones that he is allowing himself to get on base for. That's where you're seeing how good of a hitter he is because that's what we saw with Matt Carpenter a long time ago is the ability to lay off pitches that were close and draw those walks and get on base. And that's what we're seeing out of Williams. And Lester, yeah. Your Mount Rushmore will be Wags, Scott, Joe, and Arenado because you three started earlier than anybody to bring Arenado to St. Louis. I'm down with that. But Lester, make sure you go to the Facebook page. Tell us who your Cardinals Mount Rushmore is as well, because like I said, we've gotten some great responses. Over 10,000 people have viewed that so far, and gotten a lot of great comments on that. Dylan Carlson, he's not as I don't want to say he's as good as we are expecting him to be, but the fact that he's hitting consistently, now he's up to the fifth in the lineup. Is that having any effect on what Paul DeJong is seeing right now? Because he's tonight, Paul DeJong was after Carlson, but ahead of Matt Carpenter. In the past, you've seen DeJong in that fifth spot between guys like Molina and Nolan Arenado, and he wasn't really getting much. Now, all of a sudden, he gets in behind Carlson and ahead of Carpenter, who's batting .094 this year, and he launches 2 home runs. Is it just him getting locked in, or is this more of a matter of just being lucky and getting some timely pitches? Because the guy behind him isn't protecting him very much.
Yeah, I think he's just locked in. I sent that message to you guys early today and said, watch out for Paul DeJong. It looks like his swing's starting to lock in, and I think he's going to get hot. And I saw it over the weekend. It looks like he's just locked in. He's got his swing shorter. It's getting through the strike zone faster. And I think he's just getting in one of those hot streaks where we know that he can carry a team for 2 or 3 weeks. And I think it's more that than anything with Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, I would say so too. And the fact that we're seeing, 3 potential guys in a lineup that can carry a team for a 3-week span, it's going to be a fun team to watch, man. You just need to get those guys clicking at the same time. I know how hard that is to get 4 or 5 guys clicking at the same time. So, I've been on the negative train with Paul DeJong. It's just I've seen a lot of strikeouts there. And, if the guy gets going, I will kind of submit to Scott and say, you know what, you were right. But until then, it's a few spurts here and there. I want to see those balls drop for him before I make my decision on him.
But we all know that Joe hates Paul DeJong, and Paul DeJong knows that Joe hates Paul DeJong, which is one of the reasons he's never been on the show, unfortunately. We're trying to get him on so he can give Joe a face-to-face and go, hey, dude, don't hate. Don't hate, okay? So we'll see if we can get that going. Some other games in action right now. I kind of want to talk about these a little bit because it's we're 2 weeks in. We're starting to see some teams separate just a little bit. It's not anything crazy yet, except for, the Dodgers for some reason are great again. 13-3. They're going up against the Seattle Mariners tonight. A game starts at 9:10, just about right now for first pitch. That team right there, the Seattle Mariners, they're a team that surprised me a little bit right now. They're sitting at 10-6 already on the young season. Justice Sheffield goes tonight for them. He's 0-1 with a 4.91 ERA. But speaking of surprise teams, are the Mariners your biggest surprise right now, or is there another team that's sticking out in your mind that's a bigger surprise at the moment?
Good surprise or bad surprise?
Either or.
I think the biggest surprise has to be the Yankees. Worst record in the American League right now. I think that's the team that has a lot of people surprised.
Mine has to be, at least they've really picked it up a little bit, and that has to be the Atlanta Braves. They didn't start off so hot, and they're still under 500. I think they turn it around. But my other biggest surprise has to be the New York Yankees. I mean, come on, worst record in the American League, first time since 1997. I mean, this team is so stacked. How are they this bad this early? That's what I want to know.
Our biggest question going into the season with the Yankees, though, was that pitching rotation. We looked at it and we said, look, if these guys click on the pitching side of things, they could be pretty dangerous. We also knew that they've dealt with a lot of injuries in the past. Guys like Giancarlo Stanton are guys that are perpetually injured. So I don't necessarily sit there and say it's a massive surprise. I mean, it's a massive surprise that they literally have the worst record in the American League. That is a big surprise. But I don't know if we can sit there and necessarily say that we're surprised that they're struggling, because we weren't sure what that rotation was going to be like. You have Kluber coming off of injury. You got guys that are needing to have essentially career years. So I get it. I get the whole surprise of being a worse record in the American League, but I don't know if we can sit there and say that it wasn't somewhat possible that they could be like that. I think the fact that their offense hasn't been great, that's the big surprise too, is you do talk about a stacked lineup, and the fact that they just aren't doing much of anything, that is the biggest surprise for me. I like the fact that, a team like the Mariners has really stepped up and played well early on. We like to think of them as an afterthought. I think last year going into the season, we all picked Seattle last in the West. And in fact, I don't even think Scott picked Seattle to finish anywhere, because we all thought that they were absolutely terrible. So seeing them kind of rise up is pretty good too. But have any players stuck out in your mind as a bit of a surprise early on as well? I know mine is Joe Musgrove over in San Diego. Joe was big on his train early on in the season, but any guys, have they stepped up to surprise you early on?
Well, I'm going to go with another bad surprise, and that surprise has got to be Anthony Rizzo. That whole Cubs lineup is struggling, but there was a lot of swing and miss there to begin with. And the one mainstay in that lineup, in my mind, was Anthony Rizzo. And the fact that he's struggling, and he had a good game on Sunday Night Baseball, but his struggles to begin the season are really, really concerning. Really concerning, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that I have one specific player. I'm going to go bad too. And other than Ronald Acuna, I would look at that Braves lineup, because Joe said he's convinced they're going to turn it around. They're not really hitting or pitching to this point in the season, other than Acuna. So I think that's a pretty big surprise.
And Acuna's on the IL, so
is Mike Soroka, and so is Max Fried. I mean, they are dealing with a lot of injuries early on, and that is definitely a big, big deal in this day and age. You got to be healthy as much as you possibly can. Currently, the Giants lead the Phillies 2-0 going to the bottom of the ninth. The Rays a 3-0 lead over the Royals in the bottom of the seventh, and that's another team in the Royals. I've said all along, and I'm not sitting here saying Mike Matheny is a Hall of Fame type manager, but he's going to be better in Kansas City. And it's because he parallels a lot with what Tony La Russa went through, as far as, first stop, had good teams, maybe didn't succeed like he wanted to, got fired, moved on to the next team, and built and learned and got better and built a better team. I see the same thing happening with Mike Matheny in Kansas City. And that's great, because that rivalry between St. Louis and Kansas City is going to be really good in those interleague games now going forward. They've always been good. But what are your guys' take on Mike Matheny and what he's done with Kansas City this year?
They've got a lot of young talent in that Kansas City organization. I don't know that they can play at the top of the division yet. I think they're going to fall off here shortly. I think they're still a year or two away from really being able to compete. But yeah, I think you're right on target as far as Matheny learning and growing, and I think I think the Royals will be good in the next couple of years. I'm just not sure that they're quite there yet.
I think the Royals will make some leaps and bounds this year, but yeah, they're not going to be, top of the rotation team or top of the division team, excuse me. But they do have some talent. The one guy I like there, and the guy that I've wanted here for a while, and it's going to be hard to get him away from Kansas City now, is a guy in Whit Merrifield. And I remember Scott, I don't know if Scott said this necessarily, but I heard him say that it wouldn't take much to get a guy like Whit Merrifield. Well, I'd say now, Scott, I'd say it would take a hell of a lot more to get him out of Kansas City now.
Yeah, you don't want to move him now because that was last year. They made some moves in the offseason, made that team better, brought in some guys to help. And then some of their young players are coming up. But, where would Whit Merrifield really fit on this Cardinal ball club? I mean, he's kind of – Tommy Edman is kind of the Whit Merrifield of this team, isn't he?
I think so, and that's surprising because I know Scott and I both were not high on the Tommy Edman train early on, but it seems like he is starting to fill in quite admirably. And really, right now with Colton Wong being injured, the Cardinals are looking like they did the right thing. The Rangers lead the Angels 1-0 in the top of the third. Dodgers and Mariners and Brewers. Padres just underway. We're going to take a quick break here on Crunch Time. We're going to come back and talk a little bit about the NHL and the NBA playoff races. To make sure you guys stick around for more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. And we're back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. Wags, Joe, and Scott talking all things sports on a Monday. Going to talk a little bit of playoff potential action. We've got the NHL and NBA seasons winding down, so the playoff races are starting to get a little tighter. We'll talk about the Blues here in just a moment because they are off the next couple days because of Colorado's COVID issue. Good job, Avalanche. Good job, Kroenke. Let's talk about some of the games that went down tonight. You had the Lightning and Hurricanes going at it tonight. Battling for first place. At the start of the game, Tampa was sitting 2 points behind Carolina, with Florida sitting 1 point between the two of them as well. And Florida's been a big surprise after Aaron Ekblad goes down with an injury. The fact that they've kind of hung with the top two teams in that division and now sit just now tied for first place after their 4-2 victory tonight. The Lightning and Hurricanes game tonight, a 3-2 victory for Tampa Bay in overtime. That pulls them to within 1 point of Carolina and Florida for first place in the Central. Yanni Gourde got the overtime winner. And the reason the Panthers are tied at top first is they beat the Blue Jackets tonight 4-2. So that Central division is getting very, very tight at the top. Now, the fourth-seeded Nashville Predators are well behind them, although they're up 5-2 on the Blackhawks tonight. It looks like those top three teams are really going to jockey for position, and no one's really going to catch them. Were you guys kind of sitting here glad that the Blues aren't in that Central division with all the firepower that seems to now be in that division for this year? I mean, we knew Tampa was going to be tough. I'm pretty sure we thought Carolina was going to be near the top. Surprised out of Florida. And then surprised that Nashville and Chicago are really pushing for that 4 seed as well. Are we kind of glad the Blues are in the West right now, or would you rather be back in the Central?
Part of me is glad. Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Joe.
Part of me is glad we're not in the Central because it's a tougher division in a sense. At least that's what we thought before the season started. But part of me wants this to be a normal year in terms of playing the Blackhawks, the Nashville Predators. That's the part of me that wishes we were in the Central. I'm not really that surprised, though, Wags, about the Florida Panthers, just because they have Joe Quenneville. Joe Quenneville is a very good NHL coach. So no team of Joe Quenneville's ever surprises me.
Yeah. As for me, I don't think it really makes a difference which division this team is in this year because, with all the injuries and stuff, pretty sure at this point, I don't really believe the Blues are going to make the playoffs, so I don't really think it would have mattered either way, to be totally honest with you.
With the way they're playing right now, yeah, it's tough to imagine them actually being able to get into the playoffs. The one thing that they do have going for them, and the reason why I kind of started the show off saying they're going to basically back in ass first to that playoff spot, is because the only team they're really chasing is the Arizona Coyotes. And right now, the Arizona Coyotes have 2 games and almost 3 games in hand on the St. Louis Blues. And they're, at this point, just 1 point ahead of them. And currently, they're losing 3-1 to the Minnesota Wild. So if the Blues have 3 games in hand with just 1 point separating them from a potential playoff spot, I think they've got a chance to just get in. And we know what happens when a team gets in and just goes on a run. It's possible. Now, granted, you're probably playing Colorado in the first round, and that's a team that is definitely scary. They've beaten down the Blues in a lot of instances, although the Blues have played them tough. The last game against Colorado, they were down 4-1 and ended up making it a game, a 4-3 almost tie game. So I'm not sitting here saying that I don't want to play Colorado, and I'm not sitting here saying I don't want to get in the playoffs, but yeah, it's getting in. Are we going to be happy just getting in? I don't think so, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Blues make a run. I know that sounds weird to say, but this team is an underdog, and they love the underdog role. They're not playing well right now, but I could see them possibly making a run. And as we speak, the Wild now up 4-1 on the Coyotes. There is one team chasing the Blues. They're 4 points back of St. Louis, 5 points back of Arizona, and that's the San Jose Sharks. And they're another team that we thought of as kind of an afterthought this year because they were getting old. And no more so than the fact that Patrick Marleau's still playing. And for all the crap we can give the Sharks and all that, Patrick Marleau just set a record tonight. Patrick Marleau passed Gordie Howe for most games played in a career. That is a damn fine stat to have. The fact that you're passing Gordie Howe, unbelievable. So we got to give stick taps and claps to Patrick Marleau for doing what he's done to be able to play in that many games. That game against the Vegas Golden Knights just got underway. And really, this is the one time we got to sit here and think, okay, Vegas, please win for us tonight, Vegas. Please, 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 please win. So we're rooting for Vegas tonight. We're also rooting for Minnesota. I spoke earlier in the Central about the Predators and Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are actually trailing Nashville by just 2 points coming into tonight's game. And right now, they're sitting 3 points behind Nashville. Right now, Nashville's beating them 5-2. If Chicago makes the playoffs somehow and the Blues don't, how disappointed are you going to be in this season?
Very. There's no other way to put it. If Chicago gets in and the Blues don't, that would baffle everybody in St. Louis. I mean, I thought Chicago it'd be a long time before they made it back to the playoffs again. Wags, maybe you can attest to this. Maybe I'm wrong. How long does a good rebuild in the NHL? How long does that take?
A good one? Like 2
years. What Chicago's going through now, how long should it be?
2 years.
2 years?
I don't know. I really don't know how long. I mean, a good one, it could be anywhere from 2 years to 6 years. It just depends on, what you do. I mean, do you already have guys in the pipeline? Do you go out there and sign, mid-range players? It just depends on the philosophy of the ownership group. That's really what it comes down to. So, is there a set specific time frame? No, I don't think there's a set specific time frame. There's some teams, look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh continues to roll over good teams after good teams. They keep about 2 or 3 core guys, and they just keep rolling on by plugging in the right guys that fit their system. They're on their 3rd goaltender, okay? They had Marc-Andre Fleury. They had Matt Murray. Now they're on Tristan Jarry, and yet they're still in playoff contention. They're still a threat to win a Stanley Cup. And it's because you've got guys like Sidney Crosby. You've got guys like Evgeny Malkin. I know he's not playing right now, but they've stuck with their core guys, but then they've built around them with the proper pieces. So you can honestly sit there and say that Pittsburgh has continuously been in a rebuild because they're always shipping guys in and out, but they're bringing in the right guys to fit their system at a younger age and a cheaper price. So they're a consistent rebuild in a sense, if you want to get technical. Whereas you look at a team like, like Arizona has been in a rebuild for years. You look at Detroit. Detroit's in the midst of a rebuild, and they've been doing that for the last couple of years as well. So there's not really a specific time frame you can put on it. It all comes down to what the ownership group does and how they construct the team.
Well, I only asked this question, Wags, because I remember as a kid going to Blues games and how bad they were. And it seemed like for a 3 to 4 or 5 year stretch, well, they were not good at all. You know, I was just getting into hockey at that point. Is that the longest rebuild that you can remember, Wags? That's why I basically asked this question.
Once again, you have to remember, who was the ownership group at the time?
Yeah.
I mean, they were all about building revenue, getting money, and then they were going to look at possibly doing more with the team. That's the thing. You have to look at the ownership group and you have to look at the structure. I mean, Scott can attest to this. Let's look at the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals have been essentially in a rebuild for the last few years, but they still went out and spent money. I mean, am I wrong in this, Scott, that it depends on philosophy?
Right. No. And, successful teams in all sports do that. You keep a couple of those core guys, but then you shuffle in supporting cast around them. And when guys start to make more money, you shuffle them out and bring in younger guys, cheaper guys. I mean, all winning franchises in all sports do that. A perfect example of that would be a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. I mean, you could say the same thing with the Steelers. When have the Steelers been in what you would call a rebuild where they've been bad for any amount of time? Because they do. They keep those core 3 or 4 pieces, and then they're just able to constantly restock around them. And like you said, the Cardinals have been able to do that now for 20 years as well. So that's just what good franchise, good ownership groups do.
That is very, very true. Let's talk a little bit about some of these Canadian teams that are in action right now. You got the Senators and Flames tied at 1 in the second period. The Canadians a 1-0 lead over the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers are making a push here as Toronto and Winnipeg have kind of dropped into a swoon. Toronto lost 4 straight. Winnipeg's dropped a game now, and they're sitting just a couple points back of second place. I believe 7 points back of first place. The Edmonton Oilers are like an enigma to me. I mean, they've got some of the best players in the world on that team. They've got a goaltender in Mike Smith that you're like, how is he anywhere close to being a good goaltender, yet he still is a good goaltender. They don't have a whole lot of great defense, yet they're sitting in third place in that division. Now, what's the ceiling for this Oilers team this year? I mean, do they have what it takes to potentially go on a run, or is it just a product of the fact they're playing in a crappy Northern Canadian division?
I think it's a little bit of both because you have Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. A lot of people want to make the argument that, and it's a good argument, that the Edmonton Oilers are top heavy. I've been really surprised at the play from Mike Smith, especially when you don't have a defense. And I know this from being a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. If you don't have defense and your goaltender's facing 50 shots a night, then you're not going to win. So I'm glad to see Mike Smith playing well. And, it could be a bad division too, but you know what? Good on them because Connor McDavid needs to be showcased in the playoffs. He's almost, in my mind, the Mike Trout of the NHL. Sorry.
I don't know if he's the Mike Trout. I think people know who Connor McDavid is. And if you're talking about Toronto and the fact that they have no defense and a goaltender facing 50 shots and they're not winning, they're leading their division. So,
well, I know, but I'm talking like in recent years. Okay, and then
this is a pretty recent year.
You know what I mean, Lex. Like in recent years, they've had how many shots on average they face every year, every night? 45, 50 shots. You get my point.
Yeah, I mean, Frederik Andersen's faced a lot of shots in his time in Toronto, but they've done enough this year to really make a mark in a sense. I mean, they are leading their division. We'll see what happens. And like you said, if they don't have to play Boston in the first round, maybe they get out of that first round. Scott, what are your thoughts on the Northern Canadian division?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a weak division. I think Toronto is going to come out of that division, though. I think this is the Maple Leaf year. I just have that feeling, boys.
Oh, boy, would the city of Toronto and the country of Canada go absolutely crazy if Toronto somehow hoisted the cup this year. And everybody else would sit there and go, well, it's a weird year. They don't deserve to win it because they didn't play everybody. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. All right, we're going to take another break here on Crunch Time. Come back, talk a little NBA because it's something we don't talk about enough, and there's some really, really good games going on and really, really good teams out there as well. So we're going to take a look at the NBA next here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions.
Hi, I'm JD Houghton, host of the SAS Sports Show. Catch it every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time for all things Saskatchewan sports.
And make sure you check out all of the great shows here on ASTV Productions. Got a lot more in the pipeline as well, so make sure you guys are joining us every day, no matter what time of day it is, because we've got a lot of great stuff coming up here on ASTV Productions. Okay, I know I said it in the past, I'm not the biggest NBA watcher or fan or any of that stuff. Now, I did get a little hooked in the bubble last year. When the playoffs are going on, I thought there were some phenomenal games. I think there's some great players and great teams out there. I need to get more invested in this. The NBA is a fantastic league. They've got a lot of great players and just a lot of greatness about them. So we're going to talk about the NBA because the playoffs are approaching. And right now they're LeBron-less because LeBron is not playing due to an injury. And Joe, I see the hand go to the mouth because you're the biggest Lakers and LeBron fan in the world. They're playing the Jazz tonight, a team that they took out in overtime on Saturday night. They currently sit right in the middle of a very competitive Western Conference. Are they going to be able to do enough without LeBron to get into the playoffs?
Go ahead, Scott.
He was asking you, big LeBron.
Well, for me, it'll depend on it. Hopefully, they can do enough to get to the playoffs. Then LeBron comes back. The problem is we don't know what kind of player LeBron is going to be coming back because a high ankle sprain that can hinder you for a long time, even after the injury. So I think they back in. I just don't think they make a run.
Yeah, it's hard to say. In LeBron's injury is bad. Anthony Davis not being healthy is just as important as anything. He's a bigger cog to that team than LeBron is, to be completely honest. I mean, if it wasn't for Anthony Davis, they don't win last year. But if those two are not completely healthy, it's going to be hard for them to make any kind of run. The Nuggets are good, but they suffered a big loss with Jamal Murray getting hurt, so that's going to be a big knock for them as they go down the stretch. Although Missouri fans should be happy to know that Michael Porter Jr. is playing really good basketball again. He's averaging about 22 points right now. So he's played really well, so that's helped Denver. But the West is going to be interesting. The team to keep an eye on that's starting to heat up, that struggled most of the year, are the Mavs. And we know they've got a ton of talent. If Dallas can get really on a roll and get into the playoffs, they could be as scary as anybody.
Well, they've got who I think is probably one of the best players in the league right now in Luka Doncic. So, that does not surprise me. A couple of games going on right now, winding down. You got the Spurs up 107-91 on the Pacers with just under 40 seconds to go in the fourth. And a tight one between some of the top teams in the league. The Suns and Bucks are going at it right now. It's 127 all in overtime. 22 seconds left to go in that game. Two teams that, if you're the NBA, you don't want these two teams meeting for the NBA title because no one's going to watch because it's Phoenix and Milwaukee. But that could be one of the most exciting NBA finals if that were to come about. What have you guys thought of the Suns this year? What have we thought of the Bucks? I feel like they've taken a bit of a step back this year. But what are your thoughts on really the two teams in the league right now that are kind of overlooked?
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks a bit up and down. I think people would watch because there's a lot of people they're going to watch when Giannis is on TV. He's one of the most popular players in the league, obviously. And then, the Suns are a team that people don't pay attention to, but with Booker and those guys, they're really starting to come on. They could be a force in the West for the next few years because they're a young team with some young stars that are kind of one of those up-and-coming, kind of underrated teams at this point.
Yeah, I always I thought we were going to see it last year, Giannis in the finals, and he did say, I'm not going to quote this necessarily, but he did say that if he didn't go to the finals, he will test free agency. He ended up signing back with Milwaukee, and this could be the year they win it all Giannis to me is like LeBron James in terms of any team he's going to be on from here on out is going to be good because he's going to automatically carry a team. Am I wrong on that, Scott? I mean, he has that impact in my mind.
I mean, he's one of the best players in the league. The Bucks have seen, though, in the playoffs that he can't do it by himself. A couple of years ago, everybody thought it was going to be the year, and, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then he struggled. He wasn't able to – Giannis still has not figured out how to hit a mid-range jump shot. If he's not 2 or 3 feet from the basket, his offensive game is not real good. He just has not really added to his repertoire. So he needs the guys around him to help because he can't totally do it all himself. And while the Bucks are going to be good, I don't know that anybody's coming out of the East that's not named New Jersey or Brooklyn. Sorry, I always want to call them New Jersey. The Nets.
Well,
Brooklyn's going to be.
Well, here's the thing, Scott. You got to have a healthy Kevin Durant. If you don't have a healthy Kevin Durant, I don't care how stacked that team is, they're not going to win. Kevin Durant is the single most. No, I know, but we haven't gotten to the playoffs yet. But Kevin Durant is the single biggest entity on that team. And you can say otherwise all you want, but he is an MVP. He is a guy that can a guy like James Harden carry that team? I don't know because he hasn't been able to win a title. Kevin Durant's won a title.
Pretty sure James Harden and Kevin Durant played together and didn't win a title.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kevin Durant didn't win a title by himself. I'm pretty sure he had a couple guys named Steph and Clay that had a lot to do with that.
But having that experience now, though.
But Harden's played in the finals. He's been an MVP. Kyrie's been in a ton of finals. They
pretty sure he's won a final too, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay.
They have the talent. Yes, Durant's a huge part of that. But if he struggles or misses a game or two, those other guys can step up and they're deep enough that they can win with or without Kevin Durant, especially in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and speaking of this, that Bucks game, it's now going to double overtime, tied at 127. So on a Monday night, we got a epic NBA battle. A couple other games that have gone final. The Warriors beat the 76ers 107-96. The Warriors are chasing the Grizzlies for the last spot in the West. They came in tonight 2 games back of the Grizz. Now, the Grizzlies are playing the aforementioned Nuggets. A 74-70 Grizzlies lead in the third quarter. Can Golden State catch Memphis for that 8th seed? And if they do get in, I know they've dealt with injuries again this year, but do they have enough to maybe potentially go on a little bit of a run, even in that deep Western Conference?
Yes. One reason and one reason only.
Kevin Durant doesn't play for that team, though.
No. Steph Curry. If nobody can shoot. Wait. Nobody can shoot like Steph Curry can. Okay. Then you have Draymond Green in the paint. Steph can carry a team through a 3-week stretch or however long. I see that team making a big time run.
But Kevin Durant played for that team. So
I'm just saying guys who have played for that team have had experience. So it makes them better in the long run. That's just my thing. But I see the Golden State Warriors making a run and Steph Curry carrying that team on his back.
If the Golden State Warriors make the playoffs, and that's a huge if at this point, if they do, Steph Curry has to be the MVP of the NBA this year because he has had to pretty much do it by himself. I mean, Draymond's a good defensive player. He has games where he scores some points, but Draymond's more the rah-rah guy, the tough down low, getting the big rebound, that kind of thing. He really doesn't do a whole lot for the offense most nights. So Steph's had to carry that team. I do not think that he can get them through the West, though, by himself. That conference is just too loaded. Like I said, it's going to be hard for them to even get in still. But if they do, I don't see them. Maybe they win a series. I don't see them being able to go too far, though.
Quickly, before you go any further, Wags, I got to ask about that play-in tournament wishy-washy situation. What do you think comes out of that? Because that's going to be nuts.
I mean, I think the concept is interesting, but the format is where things get a little dicey. I know Mark Cuban was railing against it, even though he was one of the guys that actually helped kind of set it up, which is shocking that it didn't work in your favor, and now you're the one that's railing against it. I think there's some tweaking that needs to be done. I think that it's something that's doable and should be able to work. It's the first year, okay? You gotta see what works. You gotta make adjustments. You gotta see what other teams are experiencing. I think we're going to see it here for a long time. I think it's here to stay, and I'm okay with it because it definitely gives you some excitement for those teams that are fighting for it. I've got to see it in action first, though. I mean, that's the thing. You got to see it in action. You got to see how it works and what the results are, and then see if they make tweaks to it. And jumping back to that Phoenix-Milwaukee game, it actually is not going to double overtime because Devin Booker hit a free throw with 0.3 seconds left in that game to give the Suns a 128-127 victory. So, wow. I kind of see that's the kind of game that would get me back into the NBA. I got to watch the highlights of that one. For me, I'm a big Bulls fan. Been a Bulls fan, obviously, because of Michael Jordan. I'm still following them because obviously St. Louis doesn't have a basketball team. They were playing the Celtics tonight. And Scott, you've talked earlier in the season about how the Celtics kind of struggled this year, how Jason Tatum wasn't playing all that well. Well, coming into tonight's game, they were actually on an 8-2 run in their last 10 games. They've kind of gotten themselves back into that upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. And unfortunately for the Celtics, they lose to the Bulls tonight, 102-96. It gives the Bulls a chance at possibly getting back into the playoff race as well. But are you seeing enough out of Boston now to kind of allay your fears that they may be an easy outcome postseason?
They've played better lately. I'm still not sure that team right now is a team that's going to make a real deep run in the East. I think the East is going to be tough. Like I said, I think Brooklyn's the team to beat. You're going to have to watch out for the Bucks. There's just a lot there, and I'm just not sure that from what we've seen the last couple of years out of Boston and the struggles they've had this year for most of the season, I'm just not sure they have enough on that team to make a real run.
Yeah, I don't know if they have enough on that team as well, but any team with Jason Tatum, I talk about guys all the time being able to carry a team. He could definitely carry a team, but he has to be playing well, and he hasn't been playing well a lot this year. I mean, there were some injuries, just not good play in general, but if that guy's going, watch out for that team.
Yeah, somebody else has to help him. Jason Tatum is not a guy that's going to carry. I mean, he's going to have games where he scores 30 or 40, but he's not that guy either. Kemba Walker, one of those guys, really has to step up and play well to help him to get that team over the hump. And we'll just see. Kemba Walker's been really streaky this year as well. Before we move on from the NBA, something off the court, guys. I don't know if you saw this. The NBA put out a statement today that they are prepared to postpone games depending on what happens with the George Floyd trial, Derek Chauvin's trial, due to the fact that there could be civil unrest and protests, and there could be team and player reaction. The league is definitely prepared to shut down for a while if necessary.
It's not surprising. Obviously, that the league is definitely predominantly an African-American league, and they have every right to kind of make statements out of that. It's nice to see that they're prepared for it and that they're thinking about it because we've seen in other instances leagues and teams kind of being caught with their pants down in a sense and not being able to react properly and adjust properly as well. So they're the forethought that they have to allow their players and the teams to kind of react and not let it affect the season. You have to look at it and say, okay, the NBA is at the forefront of that. They really are. And I hope, honestly, I hope that the right outcome happens and that there isn't any unrest or anything that prevents the season or life in general from going on at a normal pace. But the fact that they are prepared for it at least shows you that they're thinking ahead and that they're thinking of the players and the community as well, because being able to have your players out in the community to support what needs to be supported shows that they do have more than just a game at their hearts and in their interests, and it's good to see that. So yeah, I mean, kudos to the NBA for at least preparing for that, and let's just hope and pray that none of that has to actually be enacted, and that we can continue on as normal.
I would hope so too. I just have a bad feeling that no matter what this verdict comes out, either way, I think we're going to have issues from either side, depending on what happens.
Yeah. I'm just gonna keep praying that that's not the case, but I think you're probably right too. So we'll definitely be monitoring that as those proceedings go along. All right, coming up here on Crunch Time after this break, we're gonna dive a little bit into the NFL, a surprise retirements in my mind, and also some volleyball news as well. So make sure you come back for more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. And we're back here with more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Wag Show and Scott talking to you about sports on a Monday night. And we had a big-time announcement in the NFL today. A player retired after winning Comeback Player of the Year last year, and that's Mr. Alex Smith, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Washington football team. Calls it a career after coming back from an absolutely gruesome leg injury, one of those that not only do you think that your playing career is in jeopardy, but your life also is in jeopardy. You know, if you watch his retirement video, the first thing that really came out was that he didn't even know if he'd be able to take a walk with his wife anymore. And yet he came back, fought back through all of that, all the rehab, all the training, got back out on the field last year, played pretty well, probably could have gone and played well this year in a backup role. But at 37 years old, Alex Smith is calling it a career. 16 years, drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in the first round, played for the Chiefs and the Washington football team, 167 starts, 99-67-1 his teams went, 35,650 passing yards, 199 touchdowns, and 109 interceptions. He actually had one of the lowest touchdown or interception ratios over the last few years, right up there with Aaron Rodgers. And it makes me sit there and go, okay, guys, we know Alex Smith wasn't a flashy quarterback. He wasn't the deep threat. He wasn't a running quarterback per se. He was just a very solid pocket passer that could scramble, definitely made the smart passes. But where does Alex Smith, in your mind, really rank in the pantheon of quarterbacks? Because he's a lot better than what people give him credit for.
You know, you're right. He is. He was always kind of labeled as a game manager. I actually heard it comes down to the fact that he was the number one overall pick that year. But I actually heard a couple of people say that Alex Smith was one of the biggest busts of the last couple of decades, which is just not fair because he was a good quarterback. You know, he led the 49ers to a couple of really good years, playoff runs. He led the Chiefs to playoff runs. But he was never given credit because he was kind of the smart quarterback. He didn't turn the ball over. You know, a lot of the systems that he worked in that's just kind of what they wanted the quarterback to do. You know, you dink and dunk, he would scramble, and you didn't really throw the ball downfield a whole lot. When he was given the opportunity to, he could. He had an arm. He just was never really in a system that allowed him to do that a whole lot. And so he was kind of mislabeled and has never really been appreciated, I don't think.
Yeah, he's really never been appreciated. He's a guy that, I wish would have gotten a better fair shake in terms of starting because I always thought he was a good starting quarterback. And I can see where, people would call him a bust because he didn't go out and win a Super Bowl as a starter, but he got his teams pretty damn close. And you can't always blame the quarterback. So kudos to Alex Smith, and hopefully he has a great life ahead because who knows? Maybe it's in a football broadcast booth, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know if he strikes me as a guy that would be an analyst or anything like that. I don't know. Scott, what do you think?
I see Alex Smith coming back as an offensive coordinator at some point, whether it's in Jacksonville, where a lot of people thought he would go to be the backup for Trevor Lawrence and kind of help him and be reunited with Urban Meyer. Alex Smith and Urban Meyer kind of put each other on the map at Utah all those years ago. They kind of go hand in hand, and a lot of people thought he would go back there to play and be the mentor for that number one pick. But I can see him eventually being an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I know in the interview on ESPN, Andy Reid's like, first dibs. I get dibs on Alex Smith as a coach. I want him here. And you talk about how, he was a great starting quarterback. He pretty much was a great teammate as well, because you look at everything that he basically went through. I mean, he was replaced by Colin Kaepernick. He was replaced by Patrick Mahomes. And yet never once did he complain. Never once did he say and demand, no, I am the starter, goddammit. I am going to be the guy. And, not every guy is like that. Not every quarterback is like that. But he was gracious enough, and he taught these guys, the offense. He supported them. He lifted them up. He was there for them, even though he was the guy that was getting benched out of that. And, they don't, San Francisco probably doesn't go to the Super Bowl if Alex Smith isn't there, supporting Colin Kaepernick in his run there. And the Chiefs may not be where they're at without the fact that Alex Smith was there and being a mentor to a guy like a Patrick Mahomes. And who knows, maybe Washington, even though he was only there a short time, maybe his recovery and his push and his drive to get back to the field, and just the way he kind of uplifted them and got them to the playoffs essentially last year, maybe that turns that franchise around a little bit as well. And that really, for me, changes the entire perspective of Alex Smith's career as well. Yeah, maybe he wasn't the flashiest of quarterbacks, but everywhere he went, he made a franchise better. And I can't think of a better legacy than being a guy that leaves a franchise better than where he found it. And you don't see that a lot with players as much as you do like coaches and GMs. But the fact that a player can leave a franchise better than when he found it, that's a rare thing indeed.
Well, yeah, and if you listen, Colin Kaepernick and Patrick Mahomes both give Alex Smith all kinds of credit, especially Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes talks all the time about how much he learned from Alex Smith, how he wouldn't be the quarterback he is if Alex Smith had taken him under his wing and taught him so many things. So they both have huge respect for him and have done nothing but shower praise on Alex Smith.
Alex Smith, to me, is a guy that, I've talked about it before in the show. I don't know if you guys remember the conversation. I talk about coaches on the field. There are certain guys that are coaches on the field. Was Alex Smith one of those guys?
I mean, it's game managing. I mean, that's the whole definition of what a game manager is. It's another extra coach on the field. It's another set of eyes. That's exactly what a game manager is. And yeah, maybe the offense makes you that kind of quarterback or that kind of player. Yeah. But he fit that mold perfectly. I mean, you saw it back in his days at Utah. I mean, that's exactly what it was. It's not like he was a flashy quarterback. Now, he did have some big time plays at Utah for sure, but that's just kind of how he was, and that's the way it is. And we just wish him a happy retirement and a happy rest of your life. The fact that he came back from that injury and is now able to spend time with his family and maybe one day get into the coaching in the NFL or even just football in general. We wish him nothing but the best. And the invitation is always open to come on our show and talk about his time in Kansas City or his time in San Francisco when he would torch the Rams when they were in St. Louis. Yeah, we'll get into that too. Or his time in Washington. The olive branch is always there, Alex Smith. So if anybody listening, or even if you are listening, Alex, the branch is there. Grab it and come on the show sometime. So, and that's for any athlete that's out there as well. Reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. We'd love to talk to you, whether you're a foe or a friend. We're here to talk sports. And speaking of sports, I got to talk about this NCAA volleyball championship going on right now. I know you guys aren't the biggest of volleyball fans. It's not like a huge sport. It's a niche sport. But in my family, volleyball is huge. My brother played. My sister played in college. She's coaching currently right now as well. Volleyball has been a big part of our lives. And I tell you what, man, the last 2 seasons, I've caught this NCAA Women's Volleyball Championship, and it's just put me in awe. with the skill and the talent and just the amazing plays that some of these teams and some of these players put out there. We're right now sitting here wrapping up the regional finals, getting ready to essentially have the Final Four in this women's volleyball championship. Tonight we had Wisconsin and Florida going at it, two very, very high-profile teams. Wisconsin with a 5-set thriller. They won the 5th set 15-12 to reach the Final Four this year, and they're looking for redemption as they were so close last year, falling to Stanford in the national championship game. So they're looking for a bit of redemption this year. You've got Texas, in my mind, upsetting Nebraska today. Texas, the 4 seed, Nebraska, the 5 seed. Another great set. But Texas is moving on to face Wisconsin in the Final Four. That game will take place on the 22nd. Over on the other side of the bracket, the 6th seed, Washington, is coming out of that bracket as they take down Pittsburgh, who made a surprise run. The Pittsburgh team took out number 3 seed Minnesota yesterday and fell, unfortunately, to Washington. Washington's had a battle back in their games the last 2 days. They had a battle back today against Pitt as well, but they have advanced to the Final Four. And currently going on right now, the scrappy 7 Purdue team is facing off against 2 seed Kentucky. This is another big-time matchup, and any team can really come out of this. I'm getting excited. I'm very excited to watch the national championship coming up here on the 24th. But, guys, I know you haven't caught any of it, but I dare you to go watch some of these matches over on ESPN3 and ESPNU because it is some unbelievable action for sure.
I'll have to, man, because I'd love to watch volleyball, and it's hard for me to realize how in sync you have to be, on the court. Like that ball could come at you in a split second. You have to make a decision. Wax, did you play volleyball? Like, I know your family is real big in it. Were you ever a volleyball player?
Recreationally, sand volleyball, that sort of stuff. I never played organized or anything like that.
Were you good? Are you any good?
Why do you think I didn't play organized?
I mean, you could be saving it.
No.
Maybe you like hockey too much, so you didn't want to.
No. But sand volleyball is a lot of fun. It is a blast to play. And honestly, I want to get a team together.
Sand volleyball is fun. I like playing too.
I've never played. That'd be actually pretty fun.
It's the one sport that you can really play and not really worry about falling down because the sand, for the most part, gives. Now, I've played in 40-degree weather in the sand, and that is not fun because that sand is rock hard, and when you fall, it hurts. But it's a lot of fun. And speaking to your point, Joe, about the fact that the fast pace of it all, I was talking to my sister yesterday. Like I said, she was a college volleyball player, and I'm asking her, I'm like, how do you guys know, what's play to run or who's going up for the hit because it is so fast paced. And she's just like, it's a feel, man. It's instinct. It's cohesiveness with your team. It's just knowing who's going where, and for that kind of unity, it's rare, and that just to me makes volleyball one of those sports that you look at and you go, wow, that's a very, very underrated sport to play, and it's not just for looks. And I know that us guys, we look at beach volleyball and we watch the Olympics, we're like, ooh, they're in bikinis and all that, but really when you watch volleyball for the pure sport of it, it's damn impressive, and we just need to get past that whole looking thing and really dive into it because it's a really, really neat sport to be a part of.
No, it really is. The volleyball players are super talented. There's a lot of really great female volleyball players, especially that have come out of the United States. Definitely.
That they are. Now, any final thoughts from you guys tonight as we get ready to wrap up? The Cardinals did win 12-5 tonight, so they got their one win of the series. Let's hope they can maybe get another one. But any final thoughts from you guys tonight?
Well, I kind of wanted to get – I'm sorry. I wanted to get to you, Scott, because I wanted to get your thoughts on this new NBA tournament scenario. I know I got Wags' thoughts, but I wanted to get your thoughts too.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out. It'll be really interesting. Real quick, though, I'm going to change subjects real quick, jump back to the NFL and off the field. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was some really interesting stuff that came out of the Deshaun Watson legal battle going on really quick. His lawyer, Rusty Hardin, filed a response to the 22 lawsuits today. Basically said only 2 of those 22 civil lawsuits actually have any forced physical activity listed in them, which Deshaun Watson completely denies ever having happened. And he also says that the claims in there are scandalous and slanderous and absolutely no truth to hardly any of them. And they also have witnesses, apparently, that a bunch of these so-called masseuses bragged to clients about their sessions with Deshaun, called him a preferred client, and said they couldn't wait to work for him again. And apparently they have tons and tons of witnesses prepared to back that up. So kind of some bombshells coming out of the Deshaun news today.
Yeah, and we've always said you got to wait for the entire story to come out before really passing judgment. So we'll see what actually becomes of this as this goes along. And then a final note on the NFL. Unfortunately, local product Alden Smith is also in trouble again with the law. He's running on battery charges in Louisiana after an incident over the weekend. Smith just signed with Seattle a couple of days ago, missed more than 4 seasons because of an indefinite suspension for off-the-field incidents. And unfortunately, he's part of another one in Louisiana earlier this weekend. So we'll keep an eye on that as well, see what happens with that. All righty, guys, we got to get out of here. Thank you for joining us here on Crunch Time. Make sure you go to the Facebook, get us your Cardinals Mount Rushmore picks. Make sure you do that. Follow and like the page because we are up over 800 now. We're going to get some gifts out here in the next couple days as well. So thank you. Make sure you come back every night here on Crunch Time to check out Crunch Time Nightly on ASTV Productions. For Scott, for Joe, I am Wags. Have a great rest of your night and a great week.